Hello and welcome to our video summary of Edward II, a play which is written by Christopher Marlowe. In this video, we'll discuss the context around this play, in addition to summarising the play and then examining the themes and symbols as well as key characters. And this video is particularly useful if you're studying this play either for your coursework or your exams. Now, when it comes to understanding context, the first thing is to understand England during Edward II's time. So this play is based on the real research that Marlowe could find about Edward II, and kings during this time weren't all powerful. Indeed, nobles had some ability to protest and make checks on the monarch. This was also a time of constant warring over land between countries, and this therefore affects Edward II, who's the king at the time, both his power as well as his influence. Now, when it comes to the play itself, we'll find that Edward I, his father, has recently died and Edward II has become king. Gaveston, a nobleman who was exiled for corrupting Edward II, reads of this news and he returns to court. And it's implied that he and Edward II are actually romantically involved. So there's implication of homosexuality between the two, which of course at the time was illegal and seen against nature. Two lords advise Edward to banish him, but Edward gives him land and titles. More lords speak out until Edward is forced to banish Gaveston again. He makes him governor of Ireland and also accompanies him. Queen Isabella persuades the lords to allow Gaveston back, so her husband will also return, and she's obviously the wife of Edward II. And they agree, however, they plot to murder Gaveston. The Danes and the Irish are moving in on England, and Edward II has failed to do anything about military operations abroad. Indeed, he's very much distracted with respect to these internal affairs and his affections for Gaveston. Edward's brother Kent also turns on him and he joins the conspiring nobles. Edward promises Gaveston that he can marry his niece. However, the nobles then turn on them and both are taken away. Edward begs to see Gaveston one last time. Gaveston is then taken away and murdered, and then we learn that England has lost Normandy to the French, and Edward sends his son and Isabella to deal with it. Edward then begins to take to Spencer, who's the son of a powerful lord, and the nobles' forces clash with Edward's, and Edward wins out. Isabella then allies with a French lord, and they join together to attack Edward. He then flees to Ireland, however he's caught, and he is disposed as king. His son will be the next king, but another noble, Mortimer, will then run the country. Mortimer is happy to let Edward live in prison, but Isabella wants him dead. Edward is transported to the Berkeley Castle, where Mortimer hires a man named Lightbourne to execute him. Lightbourne impales Edward, but guards kill Lightbourne. They then take Edward's body to Mortimer, and Edward's son hears word of the terrible murder and vows revenge against Mortimer and Isabella. He orders Mortimer to be executed and his mother imprisoned, and becomes Edward III. Now, when it comes to the key characters, the first, of course, is Edward II. He is the King of England in the play. However, we find that he neglects his responsibilities to be with the men he likes and to fulfill his homosexual desires, and this therefore weakens his power and influence within his kingdom. Therefore, his neglect for his duty as a king is his hamartia, it's his flaw, and this therefore becomes his own downfall. The other key character is Piers Gaveston. He comes from a poor background, however is very ambitious, and he scorns the other lords. However, when he aligns himself with Edward II, we do find that he overestimates the king's power to protect him, which obviously is a terrible gamble that costs him his life. Queen Isabella, the wife of Edward II, is her neglected wife, and although she tries to support his husband, even when he gives her little attention, she eventually turns on him and turns to Mortimer. The more Edward neglects his duties as king and husband, the more she turns on him, and she eventually hates him and conspires to have him murdered. In terms of the themes, the first is politics. So Edward commits what Machiavelli, a philosopher who's Italian, would call a neglect of power. By ignoring the wars and his army, he lets England fall in Normandy, which angers the nobles. he also lets his love for Gaveston get in the way of being a strict leader, and as a result, he's clearly punished for this. Sex in the social order is another important set of themes. So this is a rare moment in plays of this time where characters were openly gay. Edward seems to have a romantic relationship with Gaveston, and whilst the nobles hate Gaveston, it seems to be more because he comes from a lower class background and not so much because of the homosexual relationship that he and Edward have. Their relationship also threatens proper social order, as Edward listens to this man who is a commoner more than his own lords and certainly more than his own wife. And this relates to how sexual relations and love sometimes make people act out of what is accepted socially. In terms of analysis, the sun is an important symbol. So in the Renaissance, the sun was used as a symbol of the monarch. And Edward II is often compared to the sun in the play, and Gaveston as if he's trying to control the sun. Plants and trees are another important set of symbols. In this time, plants and nature was symbolic for country flourishing. A mower is the one who finds Edward when he tries to flee, symbolically pruning and weeding out the bad ruler so that the country can then be healthy again. So that's all. If you enjoyed this video, do subscribe and give us a thumbs up. But also, if you are sitting this video as part of your exams or coursework, we have plenty of revision worksheets which cover this play in more depth, and you can find these and access these on www.firstratetutors.com. Thank you so much for listening.